Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to dive deep into something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And this is how our physical health creates the foundation for our emotional well-being. You know, one of the biggest revelations in my own healing journey came after watching my mother's chronic anxiety manifest as cancer. This devastating experience opened up my eyes to really how our unprocessed emotional distress creates physical disease and how our physical health directly impacts our emotional resilience. I spent years of my life managing others' emotions, especially in my childhood, before learning to honor my own body's signals as an adult. And I pushed through exhaustion, powered past hunger signals, and ignored the tension that really had become a permanent fixture in my shoulders and jaw. Does that sound familiar? The sleepless nights, the teeth grinding, all of it. That's why today I want to share with you the 5 foundational connections between your physical health and your emotional well-being that really transformed my approach to healing, both for myself and for my clients and patients. So I have a question for you. What if your anger isn't a personality flaw, but your body's sending you an SOS? What if your emotional exhaustion isn't just mental, but actually on a cellular level? What if your mood swings are actually blood sugar swings in disguise? These are questions that really changed everything for me, and today they might just change everything for you as well. We're going to talk now about the connection between anger and blood sugar. Okay, so let's start with something that affects most of us daily, but we're really rarely able to connect the dots. And that's the relationship between blood sugar and anger and mood swings. Have you ever noticed how you can be perfectly fine 1 minute and then suddenly furious the next, especially if you've gone too long without eating? Hello, Hangry. There's a scientific reason for that, and it's not a character flaw, I promise, no matter how much your friends or your spouse or significant other tells you that. When your blood sugar drops, your body actually activates a threat response system. This isn't just psychological, folks. This is a very real physiological reaction. So your brain, which uses about 25% of your glucose, but can't store it, perceives low blood sugar as a survival threat. And this actually then triggers a cascade of hormones, including cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones are designed to help you fight and flee from danger, not to help you respond patiently to your partner asking about dinner plans, right? So here's what happens. As your blood glucose drops, your prefrontal cortex in your brain, this is the rational part of your brain, goes literally offline. Meanwhile, your limbic system in your brain, this is the emotional reactive part, that actually takes over. And your nervous system can't distinguish between hunger and danger. So guess what? It responds to both with the same survival mechanisms. I saw this with a client of mine named Tammy, she was an executive who struggled with the 3 p.m. crashes and unexplainable irritability, something most of us have experienced. Her colleagues actually began to avoid scheduling meetings with her in the late afternoon because she would become uncharacteristically harsh. Once we really worked to stabilize her blood sugar, both her energy and her relationships actually improved dramatically. Modern life makes this worse in really so many ways. Processed foods cause bigger blood sugar swings. Stress increases cortisol, which then worsens the crashes. Busy schedules lead to meal skipping. Caffeine dependence, that's actually going to mask hunger signals. And then diet culture actually normalizes ignoring your body's hunger cues. So we have a lot of cultural things that we're up against here. But there's some practical stabilization techniques that can transform your mood and your relationships consequently. You can start by eating protein within 30 minutes of waking. Include fat and fiber with every meal to slow down that glucose absorption. Carry emergency protein snacks. Hydrate between meals. And plan meals before you're already hungry. Your body's wisdom is always communicating. The question is, are you actually listening? When you start seeing irritability as a hunger signal rather than a character flaw, you can pause before reacting during blood sugar drops, creating then what I call a Hangry protocol. With loved ones, this has saved countless relationships among my clients. This simple agreement acknowledges that blood sugar affects mood and creates a system to address it before communication breaks down. Remember, your body isn't trying to punish you, it's trying to protect you. Honoring your body's need for consistent fuel is one of the most powerful things you can do for emotional regulation. And we're going to talk a little bit about anger as a boundary messenger in your life. So this is actually really another misunderstood emotion, being anger. And what if I told you that your anger isn't your enemy, but it's actually a messenger trying to protect you? After years and years of chronic people-pleasing and emotional caretaking, I realized that my unexpressed anger was showing up as chronic health issues. My body was literally screaming that what my voice couldn't say. Anger really serves as an incredibly important purpose in our emotional ecosystem. It's essentially your immune system signaling when a boundary has been violated or a core value has been compromised. So here are some common anger triggers that might sound familiar to you. Number one, maybe your needs are consistently ignored by your partner. Others might take advantage of your generosity, or your time or energy isn't actually respected. Or maybe your values are dismissed, and someone crosses your physical boundaries even. But many of us have learned to suppress this important emotion. And why is that? Well, fear of relationship consequences is the main reason. And cultural messaging about nice behavior, right? Family patterns of people-pleasing, concern about being labeled difficult, past experience of rejection after speaking up. When we suppress our anger, our bodies find another way to communicate. This often appears as physical symptoms that seem unrelated on the surface. These can be things like tension headaches, jaw clenching or TMJ, digestive issues, fatigue and insomnia, and even autoimmune flare-ups. Learning to honor anger as a messenger changed everything for me. And instead of seeing it as something to be ashamed of, I actually began to recognize it as valuable information. The key is translating your anger into boundaries. So you can do this by identifying the specific boundary violation that another person has crossed. You can connect with the value being threatened. You can then create a clear and calm boundary statement. You can then focus on your needs, not others' behavior, okay? It's never about the other person. Then establish consequences that you can actually uphold. Healthy anger expression doesn't mean losing control or becoming harmful. It means you allow yourself to feel anger without judgment, creating physical and emotional safety first, and then expressing needs without attacking character, using I statements to own your experience, and releasing the energy through movement and nervous system regulation. I ask you, how would your life change if you saw anger as valuable information rather than something to be ashamed of? And a lot of this can come down to generational patterns. I consider myself to be a cycle breaker. And if you're watching this video, I believe you are ready to become one too. When my mother's anxiety manifested as cancer, I witnessed firsthand how generational patterns of stress and emotional suppression can physically manifest in our bodies. I realized that I had inherited generations of unprocessed emotions stored in my own body, then showing up as my own health challenges. These aren't just emotional patterns, folks. They create physical changes that can last for generations if not addressed. And let's talk a little bit now about how these stress patterns get inherited. Stress response patterns pass through epigenetics. Children mirror parents' regulation strategies. Unprocessed family trauma creates legacy patterns. An emotional expression or suppression becomes normalized. And when we learn emotional regulation from our caregivers, this all takes place. You might recognize these inherited patterns in your own life. Something like similar emotional triggers across generations. Family sayings about emotions like just get over it. Matching physical responses like tension in the body, tension in different locations in the body. parallel coping mechanisms you might see in your parents, and consistent relationship dynamics that aren't serving you well. The physical impact, this is what's important, the physical impact of these generational stress responses is really profound. So you're going to see that inflammation patterns run in families, stress-related health issues often repeat, nervous system dysregulation becomes inherited, digestive issues follow family patterns, sleep disturbances mirror ancestral ones. Like my client Elena, who was walking on eggshells, as she put it, for years in a challenging marriage. I discovered how these emotional patterns create physical changes that perpetuate through generations. My own phoenix rising process, as I like to call it, began when I stopped abandoning myself and started acknowledging these inherited patterns. The person that got me here today won't be the person that gets me through. I had to let an old part of myself literally die for healing to begin. And breaking this cycle starts with awareness. So you can do this by mapping your family's emotional patterns. You can notice your automatic stress responses. You can identify triggering scenarios, even connect the physical symptoms to emotional patterns. You can recognize the "this is just how we are" beliefs. Then we're going to move on to what nervous system regulation is going to look like in this scenario. So you can develop a personalized regulation techniques that work for you. You can create space between the trigger and the response, the pause, which we've talked about. You can build a physical awareness practice, you can establish new family communication patterns, and then validate emotions instead of suppressing them. Because breaking generational patterns isn't just personal healing, it's ancestral healing that literally ripples forward to future generations. And through epigenetics, the way we process emotions literally changes what we pass down to our children. You can be the pattern breaker, I promise you. Each regulated response creates a new neural pathway. Your healing affects future generations, and small changes compound over time. Your courage ripples through your lineage. You have that power. Your reactivity is your response to the past. So I'm going to ask you, are you ready to live in the present? I spent years hyper-vigilant, my nervous system constantly scanning the environment for things that weren't there. This stress response served me in childhood, but was sabotaging my adult relationships and health. There are specific biological reasons why we react instead of respond. Things like survival responses are lightning fast by design. Our brain wants the quickest way to resolution. Trauma creates hair-trigger nervous system responses. Our brains prioritize speed over accuracy, and past patterns create automatic responses. And then modern stressors, which we're constantly surrounded by, hijack these systems. And the cost is enormous. Damaged relationships from words said out of reaction. Think of the physical toll of constant stress activation. Lost opportunities for authentic connection with our friends and partners. Reinforced neural pathways of reactivity and disconnection from your authentic self. I had a client, Michelle, who found herself doubled over with stomach pain while working as a nurse. Her doctor dismissed it as just stress until we discovered her caregiving role had put her nervous system in constant hypervigilance. My own healing began when I realized these reactions weren't character flaws. They were my nervous system doing exactly what it had been trained to do and what it was naturally going to do. The problem wasn't me. This is profound. The problem was not me. It was that my protection patterns had become prison patterns. Creating what I call your pause muscle is essential for transformation. You can do this by starting with a conscious 3-second breath. Notice physical sensations before responding. Name the emotions as they arise, like I feel angry. Create environmental pause reminders and practice the pause during low stress situations. Here's a few powerful nervous system regulation techniques you can use. You can extend your exhale to activate your parasympathetic, the rest and digest response. Place one hand over your heart and one hand on your belly. Feel your feet on the ground. Use 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 sensory technique. You can even splash cold water on your face. Building daily pause practices is where the real transformation happens. In the morning, you want to do regulation before checking your devices. Transition rituals between activities is really big. Mealtime mindfulness moments. You can do body check-ins throughout the day, see how you're feeling. An evening reflection without judgment. Sometimes we have to do the hard things because they are the true learning things. Learning to pause between stimulus and response is one of those hard, necessary truths. I discovered emotions aren't just thoughts. They're sensations that flow and aren't permanent. You are not your feeling. I'm learning how to not let them overpower me and take over. And the transformation is profound. Choice replaces automatic patterns. Relationships deepen through true presence. Your body experiences less stress, activation, authentic self-expression. Your expression becomes possible, and you respond from wisdom, not from wounding. So let's jump in a little bit to the mitochondria energy and emotion connection. What if your emotional exhaustion isn't a mental issue, but a cellular one? My own journey through burnout and emotional volatility led me to an unexpected place, being my mitochondria. These tiny cellular powerhouses don't just generate physical energy, they create the capacity for emotional regulation and resilience. And when they're compromised, no amount of mindset work can compensate for that. So here's what mitochondria actually do. They create 90% of your body's energy system, or your ATP. They power every function from thinking to moving. They determine your capacity for stress resilience. And they actually influence mood stability and focus. And they generate cellular energy for emotional regulation as well. So you might recognize these signs of mitochondrial dysfunction. Persistent fatigue despite adequate sleep. Brain fog and difficulty concentrating. Mood swings and emotional volatility. Exercise intolerance and prolonged recovery. Temperature sensitivity and poor stress tolerance. My past client named Nora couldn't muster energy for her daughter's school play despite sleeping 8+ hours. Her doctor said everything looked normal. We discovered her cortisol patterns were completely backward, flat when they should be high, spiking when they should be low, an experience I lived through myself. So what drains your cellular energy? Chronic stress and HPA axis dysregulation, blood sugar instability, so glucose spikes and crashes, environmental toxin exposure is a huge one, processed foods and inflammatory diets, disrupted sleep and circadian rhythms. I learned that your physical body and physical health are the glue that make all changes stick. You cannot build healthy relationships or mental health on a foundation of cellular exhaustion. So if you're working with a healthcare provider, here are some key lab markers to check. Organic acids to assess nutrient deficiencies. Inflammatory markers like CRP and homocysteine. Blood glucose regulation, HbA1c and fasting insulin. Oxidative stress markers, comprehensive thyroid panel for energy regulation. Spring cleaning at the cellular level really can be transformative. This can look like strategic fasting windows for mitophagy, phytonutrients that support cellular detox, and even movement that increases mitochondrial production, targeted supplements for mitochondrial support, and nervous system regulation for energy conservation. By breaking unhealthy patterns meant understanding their origins, including how stress response patterns get literally encoded into our cellular function through epigenetics. And when mitochondrial health improves, literally everything changes. Stable energy throughout the day, emotional resilience during challenges, mental clarity and focused attention, consistent mood without dramatic swings, and better stress recovery and adaptation. I'm going to ask you, have you ever noticed the connection between your physical energy and emotional resilience? This is the foundation that makes all other healing possible. And as we wrap up today, I want to acknowledge something important, that healing is a journey, it's not a destination. The connections between your physical health and your emotional well-being run really deep, and addressing them requires patience, compassion, and consistent care. My own Phoenix process began when I stopped abandoning myself and started acknowledging these patterns. The old part of me that had to die so that a new part could live. This transformation requires honoring both physical and emotional experience. The journey from self-abandonment to self-discovery, this really is the trek of coming home to yourself. And my purpose is to help people realize their worthiness, to guide you from self-abandonment commitment to self-discovery, helping you break chronic cycles of stress, anxiety, and disconnection that actually then end up manifesting as physical disease. And if today's video resonated with you, please hit the like button and share it with someone. You never know whose life you're going to benefit. And in the comments, please go ahead. I'd love to hear which of these connections hit home for you the most. And until next time, stay well, and I'll see you soon.